We begin today with a quote, from either Ted Lasso or Walt Whitman. Same quote, take your choice. We'll then discuss some familiar and recognizable quotes from Voltaire, Nelson Mandela, and Mahatma Gandhi. And I tell you a story about one possible scenario for when my earthly days are over and I approach those pearly gates. And all of this is on the way towards revealing to you what St. Francis may have said, which is you actually can take it with you when you go. Welcome to the Sky Pilot podcast that explores questions of faith, spirituality, and religion. I'm Dan Matthews, and I don't have all the answers, but I do enjoy the questions. Welcome to the podcast where every question is an invitation into a spiritual quest, and you're invited along for the journey. Hi, I'm Dan. This is Quark, and welcome to Sky Pilot Faith Quest podcast, the video versions. Now, one of the curiosities of Christianity and our relationship with the Bible, our sacred text, is that we have books of the Bible that we argue about who wrote those books. We have books that we aren't really sure who wrote them. We don't know. I mean, it feels like by this point we should know. Why don't we know? Well, perhaps part of the answer is that the people who lived a long time ago and wrote these books thousands of years ago, perhaps they were not as obsessed and careful with, say, attributions as we are in our work today.
Okay, but when the book has someone's name on it, we know for certain then, correct? Like the book of Isaiah was certainly written by Isaiah, Jeremiah by Jeremiah, John by John. Right?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Let me begin by looking at Isaiah, which generally scholars believe was either written by Isaiah or at least written down by someone who was recording his words in his lifetime. So yes, Isaiah was in essence written by Isaiah.
Oh, good.
In part.
Oh.
Well, it's generally accepted that there are three sections of the book. The first are the words of the prophet Isaiah that we just talked about, but the other two sections come from different times and different authors.
Question, so these authors, why didn't they just write their own books and sign them like people do today?
Well, first, for them, getting credit for their work was not as important, I think, as it is to us today, but it wasn't as important as taking the words that they were writing, the teachings that they were gathering together that seemed to them to continue in the continuity of the prophet who had gone before. So they put those words, those thoughts, those writings under the name of the old prophet because they seemed to be consistent with his teachings. And just for a frame of reference, we don't really live in the world, I think, that you think we do.
Oh, meaning?
Well, have you heard of the quote, "Be curious, not judgmental"?
Oh, of course, that's from Walt Whitman. I learned of it on an episode of Ted Lasso, in perhaps what is the best scene of that entire television series.
Well, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news at this particular point, but no. He's not the one who said that, and he didn't even write it. But before you get disappointed and discouraged, now I'm not an expert on Walt Whitman, but I'm going to say at this point, who cares if he wrote it? If the words have power, and if they speak to you and they give some meaning to you, then they still have power and can speak to you, even if they aren't actually the words of Walt Whitman. And there are a bunch of these quotes that are attributed to famous people but weren't actually said by those famous people. Ever heard of the quote, "I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it"? Yeah, that's not Voltaire. It was attributed to him. It has been so many times, but it didn't originate with him. Or how about this one? Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. That's a good quote and is often attributed to, but not actually said by, Nelson Mandela. And perhaps the most famous of all of these, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." That is a really good quote. Good life advice, actually, but it just wasn't actually said by Gandhi, to whom it is almost always attributed. So first, we are evidently not as on top of the whole attribution thing as much as we thought. And I'm getting ready to add another one to the list.
So who are we not quoting this time?
St. Francis. So I'm on the internet recently and I come across a quote attributed to St. Francis. And it says this: "Keep a clear eye towards life's end. Do not forget your purpose and destiny as God's creature. What you are in His sight is what you are and nothing more. Remember that when you leave this earth, you can take nothing that you have received, but only what you have given." This is all over the internet, and pretty much it is always attributed to St. Francis, except for those folks who are divulging that it really wasn't said by St. Francis. Best I can tell, it was said in some form or another by the Reverend Angelus DeMarco, a Catholic priest, as he spoke to the House of Delegates in Virginia in the early 1980s, actually, not very long ago. We don't know if the words were original with him, but at least we do know that he did say it in that time and at that location.
So how did it come to be attributed to St. Francis?
Okay, I'm not certain and I haven't found this anyplace, but after reading about this a little bit, here's my best guess. Father DeMarco was serving at that particular time as the minister at St. Francis Catholic Church. And his words, his name, and his, I'm going to guess, work placement may have been all printed together. And someone, quoting him in haste, took the name of his church rather than his name as who had said the quote. But having said that, the words are powerful and worth looking at and considering. So there's a really interesting, for me, jewel in the middle of this quote, and it is this: "Remember that when you leave this earth, you can take nothing that you have received, but only what you have given." Now, we've all heard that we can't take anything with us when we die. That part isn't new. The part that is new, the idea that is really kind of radical in this quote, is that you can and you will take something with you into the next life, but it's not what you own nor what you've earned, but only what you have given. Okay, story time at this point. Now, imagine me, at the end of my days, I die, and I find myself approaching the gates of heaven. I find myself walking towards the threshold of that holy eternity. And there stands at the gates an angel welcoming me. Yeah, I hope he's welcoming me. He has to be welcoming me, right? Look, I'll be honest, I'm more than a little nervous at this particular point. This is a big moment. And do they turn people away? I don't want to be turned away. And the angel is enormous, towering over me, looking at me, looking through me. And I begin to talk because talking is what I do when I'm nervous.
Not sure that I've noticed that you ever really stop talking.
Okay, I'm telling a story here. So I'm this close to heaven, and the only thing standing between me and eternal life, well, as far as I can tell, is this angel. But this is a really big angel. So I get nervous and I need to say something to help my case. So I just kind of start talking. And in this particular moment, I start talking about how often I have read the Bible during my life. The angel responds with,
"Nobody here really cares."
"All right, I wasn't expecting that. Okay, I've got something else then. I've got another idea. Here's what I say. I went to church a lot. I even led services for other people." To which the angel says,
"Yeah, that doesn't really impress anyone in this place either."
Okay, think, come up with something. Oh, I've got one. Yes, I was married to one woman, and I remained faithful to her throughout our entire life together, our entire marriage. The angel quickly responds,
"Why do so many men get to this point and claim that as something amazing? It's fine. Expected, but fine. And again, no one here cares."
Does fine mean the same thing in heaven that it does on earth? Okay, all right, I got something. I fasted regularly as a spiritual discipline, and I also followed all of the 10 Commandments. The angel just stares at me and yawns. Do angels yawn? I swear, he just yawned. The angel looks at me like he has had this conversation way too many times before, and he takes a deeply weary breath and then says,
Look, all those things you named, they are fine. They aren't bad, but showing up here and talking about them is like showing up your freshman year in college and wearing your high school letter jacket. It may have meant something before, but it doesn't mean much to anyone here.
All right, I'm beginning to panic. This is not going well. I'm kind of lost at this point as to what I should do. So I just blurt out a question. So what does matter in this place?
Remember the biblical passage found in 1 Corinthians 13?
Oh, yeah, I say. Yeah, I studied the Bible. I know it well. I swear the angel just rolled his eyes. I'm really learning a lot right now about angels. Do angels roll their eyes? Because this one just did. So I answer by saying, yeah, it's the passage that says, if I speak in the tongues of mortals and of angels, but do not have love, I'm a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. The angel then asks me,
And do you remember how that passage ends?
of course. It ends with, and now faith, hope, and love abide, these three. And the greatest of these is love. Oh, okay. I feel like I'm beginning to understand. And I blurt out, I've kept these as long as I can remember. I've always tried to make sure that I am filled with faith, hope, and love, and made love the most important of them all. I'm pretty sure I catch the angel looking at his wrist, checking the time, and sighing, wait, he doesn't even have a watch on it.
Look, you got the passage right, but the importance wrong.
You mean love isn't the most important?
No, that part is correct. But we aren't really interested in if you had these. But did you give them? Did you inspire them? Did you offer them to others?
Okay, just about this time I was about to ask another question.
Did you endeavor to inspire faith in others? Did you make it your mission in your life to instill hope in the people that you interacted with? And yes, love is important, but we don't really care as much about your feeling love as we do your sharing it, your giving it freely to others. Those are the things that are impressive in this place.
So we come to the close of the story, and I do want to say the quote that we are talking about wasn't said by St. Francis. It isn't even from the Bible. So if you want to, at this point or at any point along the way, you can hear it and dismiss it just as quickly as you heard it. But I found this to be such an interesting quote, whoever said it. It just causes me, well, and I hope it causes you to think and ask yourself, what if it's true? And does that lead you somewhere interesting? That's all for today. Just a quote and encouragement to consider it. How would you live your life differently if you knew that when you die, you can take it with you, but nothing tangible, none of your achievements, none of your deeds, not even your own faithfulness? I find it a pretty interesting and challenging thing to think about, that idea. And in the end, the only thing you can take with you into the next life are the times you gave of yourself in ways that inspired faith, generated hope, and gave others a sense of being loved. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below about this podcast. And on your spiritual journey, may you ask questions, seek answers, and boldly go wherever the quest takes you. Thanks for joining us here today and being part of the SkyPilot Faith Quest community. This is a great place to ask questions you wouldn't feel comfortable or safe asking in other places. And remember, the sign of a strong faith, solid religion, or healthy spiritual journey is not certainty, but that you keep asking questions.